A standard traffic infraction requires a surprising development when a black federal A prosecutor refuses to back down from a contemptuous judge, revealing ingrained judicial biases that will never view justice in the same manner once more. There was a gentle buzzing of fluorescent lights in the Greenville's tiny town courthouse. It was one of those midweek days in Missouri. Mornings when all of the people present appeared eager to move on with. The courtroom was small on that day, with hardwood benches that have been smoothed off by years of people on the bench judge who are restless. Ethan Caldwell was sitting there looking power, his gavel sitting next to a thick case file stack, and his reputation Swift's non-nonsense verdicts came before. However, his fairness was a trait that frequently discussed in whispered tones in the A mix of locals and senior citizens sat in the gallery. A man gripping his hat nervously. A mother attempting to keep her agitated youngster inside, a young black woman seated in a check. She wore a basic navy blue outfit by herself. Her face is calm, and her stance is upright. Although a tiny gold bracelet that is unreadable on each time, the light caught her wrist. She moved a little, and her name was Angela. Davis is a name that is not an activist, frequently prompted interested looks. However, Angela had been given a ticket, charged 2 weeks earlier for operating a stop sign while returning from work. She had been driving her sedan on the trip, across a peaceful section of the highway. When she was stopped by the officer, she didn't dispute at the time despite knowing she had stopped completely and was now seated. In the courtroom, she intended to clarify the clerk assigned her case, number 1264, called Angela Rose to break the monotony. Her shoes made a gentle clicking sound against the gleaming floor as she approached the judge. Caldwell glanced at the defendant's table, up, looking at her for a moment before returning to the documents in front of. He said, "Kurt, Miss Davis, you've been accused of not stopping at a posted sign, which carries a $300 punishment. What defense do you have to offer?" Angela's voice was distinct, yet without animosity. "Your Honor, I reached a total halt at that crossroads. I think there might have been a mistake in the officers." The judge's eyebrows went up in observation. "Nevertheless, the officer's report states otherwise. Are you implying that he made up his—" The slightest edge was in the voice, and a few individuals in the gallery took a quick look at Angela didn't wince at each other. "I'm only stating that he may have made—" A Judge Caldwell leaned back in error. He smirked slightly in his chair. "Making mistakes is inevitable, isn't it? However, we rely on them in this courtroom. Evidence devoid of supporting documentation. You are free to pay the fine as it stands. Now, or set up a payment schedule." Tension seemed to shift in the room. Angela maintained eye contact with her expression. "I would like, Your Honor, calm but forceful, the chance to present my case more carefully before rendering a decision." Judge Caldwell gave a brief last statement, sigh loud enough to make a faint echo. "This is not a trial, Miss Davis. It's a hearing if you want to present your argument. Additionally, you might employ a lawyer and appeal my decision for the time being." The words struck like a gavel, hit hard and decisively, but Angela wasn't. Angela's actions were intentional. As she dug into her handbag and took out a stylish, black wallet that she put it on the table and turned it over, open to display a shiny badge. "Your Honor," in addition to her federal ID card. She spoke in a steady but now firmer tone. "In this case, I'm not simply another defendant. I'm Angela, Davis's aide in the courtroom, attorney for the Eastern United States Missouri District." The room froze, the talk coming from the gallery's rear paused, and the stenographer stopped as well. "Judge, take time to type." Caldwell's face became stern. His smirk disappeared as he leaned forward a little. His voice was clearly colder. "And what's that related to?" "Angela, with your traffic infraction didn't hesitate, indicating that I am fully aware of the legal standard, the burden of proof, and the significance of fairness in proceedings such as this. It also indicates that I'm not someone you have the ability to intimidate or dismiss due to rumors and whispers echoed through the tension in the gallery was evident now. All eyes were focused on the exit. Between the judge and Angela, Caldwell tapped his gavel and straightened softly on the bench as though to Miss Davis. "Shall I regain control?" "Say, Prosecutor, this is how the courtroom works. Regardless of your governmental position, your position does not absolve you of observing traffic laws. Angela gave her a nod. Tone unwavering. Nor does it excuse you from maintaining objectivity, Your Honor. I would not hesitate to pay a fee if I were genuinely at fault, but ignoring my argument, meant without taking into account the potential for error, is incompatible with fairness. Our legal system demands that her words be sharp. Arrow. The judge's mouth tensed. Unnoticeably, he looked in the direction of maybe the gallery realized how close the crowd was watching him closely. His temples began to perspire, yet he kept his cool. Are you saying that this court is biased? Ms. Davis asked in a measured tone, but with a hint of defensiveness. Angela. She cocked her head slightly and looked steadfastly. I'm requesting that this court think about whether bias is unconscious or otherwise could be impacting its judgment, which is not a charge but rather a request reflecting. The judge parted his lips to reply, but was hesitant due to the significance of her remarks, appeared to linger. Gaining weight every second, Angela kept talking calmly. But every day, people resolutely enter courts such as this one in the hopes of justice, only to hear their words ignored since many lack the resources or the self-assurance to speak up. And someone in the rear of the room will allow out a silent to concur, but swiftly suppressed it when the judge's gaze strayed. The clerk cleared his throat in their direction, clumsily interrupting the judge's quiet. At last, Caldwell answered in a hushed voice, but firmly, Miss Davis. I won't permit this courtroom will serve as a venue for the law is unambiguous, and I uphold my decision if you so want. Contest it, and submit an appeal. Angela softly grinned, but not in amusement, but a certain serenity. Defiance. Thank you for the explanation, Your Honor, and I'll contest it. Because $300, but because values such as accountability and justice are important. Her words will linger more than money ever could, like a soft thunderclap in the air. And the judge glanced for the first time. Angela remained at the podium, uneasy. Instead, she put her hands there right away, securely on the wooden edge of the stand, looking around the room steadily. Look at her serene poise in contrast to dramatically with the growing strain in the now that the gallery is completely awake. Lean as though holding its breath as a group. Your Honor, Angela started speaking. Steadfast before I leave. I'd like to impart knowledge I've gained from my years of experience as a prosecutor. Justice isn't merely concerning applying the letter of the law. It's about failing to comprehend the spirit of it, and empathy is necessary for that. Equity and a readiness to hear. Judge Caldwell's face became a little redder, but his expression remained stoic. If you have a point, Miss Davis, I recommend you do it fast, Angela said. His harsh tone doesn't disturb me, so I'll ask an individual who has prosecuted innumerable cases. I have personally witnessed how unconscious biases affect choices made by the street policemen to the judges in the frequently. These biases aren't intentional, yet they actually repercussions for those who are judged before they've even got the opportunity to talk, and their accounts are rejected due to presumptions that do not support. The whispers in the gallery became noisier with a blend of agreement, as well as a young man toward the back was curious, murmured, "She's getting a point." Brief gleam from Angela's bailiff, returning attention to the judge. Your Honor. None of us are perfect, and I don't claim to be, are only what set those who are looking apart. Justice from those in positions of abuse is the capacity to acknowledge our own shortcomings and correct them. The silence in the room descended. Judge Caldwell moved in his chair once again, clearly uneasy but unwilling to go back. Monsieur Davis, he urged in a voice tight. This is a seminar, not a court of law. Your remarks during passionate people don't matter. Nearby, Angela inhaled deeply before responding that they are completely pertinent to Your Honor, because I'm not the only one involved. Or a $300 fine. Integrity is the key of this courtroom and its significance to the individuals who traverse those doorways daily. If justice is filtered, it isn't justice. Under the prism of preconceived ideas, the room briefly appeared to the older one hums in wordless agreement. The man in the gallery gripped his hat tightly, somewhat closer, and the mother was by her side. The toddler gave a little nod, her expression showing a combination of hope, and Judge Caldwell gazed with admiration at Angela's face was unreadable. But before he could reply, Angela brought him. Her tone in her last words for the moment cool, but slicing, and just so you know, she gestured to her federal honor. ID is still visible on the table. Isn't about taking advantage of my position to accountability is the process of making sure that everyone, regardless of title, background, or situation, is addressed with the honor they worthy. She grabbed her ID and slid it, putting her movements back into her wallet. The gallery was slow and methodical, completely still. The strain has become heavy. Judge Caldwell remained still for his hand on the gavel for a second, as if it were the soul anchoring the significance of Angela's remarks, and that the gallery's unspoken backing was not to be ignored. He cleared his throat. The sound is heavy with thoughtfulness. Ms. Davis, he started, his tone softer, yet still precise. I've spent more than 20 years on this bench. Years. And I've taken great pride in maintaining an orderly courtroom. Regarding the rule of law, he stopped to look at switching to the gallery for a moment before going back to Angela. But you've provided me with something to think about. The space contained its group breath, his remarks indicating an uncommon instance of vulnerability. He let out a long breath and glanced straight at Angela, a slight hint of modesty piercing his otherwise. I'll adopt a stoic expression. Your statement's under guidance, not only for this instance, but for my own behavior. Angela moved forward, cocking her head. A little of her composed manner, eternal gratitude, Your Honor. That's Judge Caldwell is the only person anyone may ask. Transferred to the clerk, the penalty will stay in place. Documented, but Ms. Davis will possess the chance to make her argument via an lawyer, should she decide to attend this hearing. After adjourning, he hit the gavel with finality. But it didn't feel quite as an assertion of power and like a motion of recognition. As Angela pulled her possessions, the gallery burst into, again. Several people murmured with relief. Others shared enlightening glances with the woman who had previously talked, handed Angela a tiny gesture of appreciation on her face, radiant with newly discovered self-assurance. Angela passed the gallery and stopped as she spoke as the door turned slightly, loud enough for the room to hear. Everyone should know that change doesn't occur. It's a process in one instant, but every step counts and every voice counts. Don't be scared to take your own counts. She then departed the courtroom, heels clattering on the shiny floor with the same thoughtful elegance as once she had gone inside. That day's events had an impact on everyone in the room. Watch Judge Caldwell turn into more reflective in his decisions, aware of his personal prejudices and their influence. Angela's audacity motivated others in the community to advocate for themselves, defiantly questioning the status quo, and belief the young lady from the Angela's example gives the gallery more confidence. Started working as a volunteer for a local law aid group, guiding others through the lesson, was about a system she previously feared was, evidently, justice is more than just the law, it's concerning others, and occasionally all it takes to initiate change. One individual must be prepared to maintain their position and remind others of their value.